All right, how's everyone doing? I am Rich Celenza. Thanks for tuning in to the Rich Celenza Show. WTF are you talking about? So what I want to get into today is your health and your freedom is everything. Here's the bottom line. If you're healthy, I'm telling you, you have everything. You just don't a lot of times realize it. And if you've never been sick, you really don't realize it. But if you've ever gotten very sick, you will be able to understand exactly what I'm talking about. When I was younger, I had all these issues with my health. And one was with my throat. They ended up having to do an emergency surgery on me because my throat was closing up. It was turning black. I guess my tonsils were so infected. And when I was younger as a little boy, my ears were always ringing. I had problems with my teeth as well, but my throat. And then as time went on, after that, I felt a lot better. It actually was a game changer for me, having my tonsils removed in the 70s, which not a lot of people did. But after that emergency surgery, I ended up having a hernia as well. So I had that surgery done as well. And then, like I was saying, I had a lot of teeth issues for some odd reason. And they were just hurting me. I had these root canals, and they were shocked I was having all these teeth issues. I was getting these, and I never get headaches, but my head just always hurt. My mouth always hurt. And I don't know if I was just malnutrition, but when I was younger, I just didn't feel good, especially throughout junior high. And I was lifting a lot of weights. And now that I look back, I just don't think I was eating enough food for as active as I was. I think I was just burning off so much, so I was I'd have these dips up and down with my blood sugar. I'd be drained, and then I'd have these bursts of energy, and I loved sports. But I really started to learn the value of health at a young age. My father used to talk about health, that, you only get one body, and you better take care of it. And my cousin, who's a model, she used to talk about that as well, that I promise you taking care of your body is worth it, especially if you plan on living longer. I lifted a lot of heavy weights and beat the shit out of my body, played a lot of sports. I thought I was doing a good thing, but in hindsight, I was doing a lot of good things as far as cardio, weightlifting, and all that. But at the same time, I was hurting my muscles, tendons, and joints a lot of times. I even got very heavy, or I got obsessed with getting huge. It's an insecurity I had. So the bigger I got, the smaller I kind of felt. It was really weird, reverse anorexiism. So as much as when I first started off, especially after high school, getting in amazing shape, and I was always in great shape, but my God, in my late 20s, I was really shredded and in great shape. Then all of a sudden, I went too far with it. But back to your health, if you are somebody, and I preach a lot about health, because I don't think a lot of us really realize how we're beating the shit out of our bodies. Now, if you're doing physical labor for a living, that's amazing. Just really be aware that, if you want to do physical labor for 30, 40 years, just be very careful, I tell people. Because I have a lot of family members that are painters, that do construction, carpenters, and electrical guys, all this. And a lot of them are really beat down at 40. And they start to have a lot of physical issues, especially in their back, in their shoulders. And you just got to be very aware of that. So that's just something I'm throwing in here. But please pay attention to, the drinking, the eating, and just the rest. I don't think a lot of people get enough rest. I've done podcasts where they're always talking about get less sleep, do more work, you'll have more money, or do this and this. I'm all about the rest. I really think people need at least 8 hours sleep. I think people need at least 1 or 2 naps. I'm not saying you got to nap for hours and hours, but definitely at least 1 nap throughout the day I think is incredible. Again, something I think we neglect is sleep. I usually can immediately tell somebody who gets no sleep. You can just see the bags under their eyes, or even the whiteness of their eyes, or the non-whiteness, just especially when they start to hit middle-aged. And everybody physically is different. Everybody's genetics are different. I talk about that all the time, but if you can't get the proper amount of rest, how is your body going to really rejuvenate and heal? Because a lot of our body is about healing, especially if you work out or if you work physical labor, you do a lot of things. You need that rest, and most people neglect it. And I think now with Netflix, which sounds crazy, I heard some study, and a lot of times I think studies are bullshit. But in this case, I don't. a lot of people with Netflix, with these shows or them doing multiple shows, binge walking, I call them Netflix smashers. Like, they stay up they're staying up too late. Bottom line, they're watching too many shows, and then they got to still get up in the morning. Where I think even before, when people had cable or they just had regular television or even the internet, I don't think they were missing this much sleep. But I think now more than ever, people are lacking, they're not getting enough rest, is the bottom line. And that is one of the strongest things I talk about with health. All right, try to get that rest. And if you look at everything that you're consuming in your body now, I travel a lot, so I'm always eating different things. I mainly eat Italian foods. I try to work out as much as I can to offset my eating habits because they're not great. But I do try to start off with orange juice and oatmeal, and as the day progresses, sometimes they're not always the best meals, but I do realize everything I'm putting into my body. I'm also paying attention, which I don't think a lot of people do. Excuse me, that was a belch. Is how I feel after eating a lot of foods or drinking certain beverages. That can even include alcohol. Sometimes if I do have a drink, I'm like, wow, that made me feel like shit. Or if I have this alcoholic drink, I'm like, oh, that's okay. It could be even wine. I'm like, wow, wine's making me exhausted, right? Maybe a beer, I feel a little bloated, an Italian beer, but I'm okay. If I do a margarita, one only, I feel okay. If I do two, it starts to burn my stomach. So I know basically everything, most likely I'm going to feel after that. This type of coffee, if I drink this amount of coffee, I feel this way. If I overdo it, I feel this way. So again, I don't think a lot of people really understand what they're doing to themselves. They just keep doing the same thing over and over again, and they don't realize that that may be the one thing not, helping you. It could be hurting you. But we get almost accustomed or just used to feeling not good. And I think a lot of people overeat and eat too many meats, and I like meat too, but I especially see this in the Midwest, in Chicago, with a lot of my friends. They're eating a lot of pizza, a lot of comfort food, sausage, all these type of comfort foods that aren't that healthy, and once in a while isn't bad. But when you start doing them every day, I don't think a lot of people realize what that is doing to them. So that is something you really have to pay attention to. And so now I'm going to jump into freedom. And when I was younger, I had some issues. And when you lose your freedom, so if you get arrested, put in jail, or prison, whatever the case may be, I don't think a lot of people understand, unless you've gone through that, how important your freedom is, because they've never lost it. I've always said they should take kids in junior high and take them to a prison. They should have and just lock each one of them up individually for just an hour with no technology, nothing. I'm not talking a scared straight program, because a lot of times those kids already had issues, and you can watch it on TV and be like, oh, this is kind of bullshitty. We know the prisoners can't beat the shit out of them because they're just going to sit there and scream at them and intimidate them. We get it. But I'm talking about, I think a lot of people, especially younger people, who make a lot of mistakes in their life, don't understand, the consequences. They truly don't get it, because they're used to looking at things through either like a television or a computer or on their phone. It's kind of make-believe, or they think it's cool. I kind of thought it was cool too when I was younger, to be kind of a badass, and then if you go to the joint, you kind of prove your worth, or if you get out of it, or whatever the case may be. My whole theory in life was to stay out of the joint, but be able to do whatever you want to do. I kind of had a mindset where I understand society has these rules. I don't necessarily have to follow them. I think a lot of crazy, actually I consider myself back then like a lot of Italians, I should say, they believe in their own set of rules. They don't necessarily like following other people's rules, and I think I definitely fell into that category. But what I realized is, as time went on, and before you know it, I was almost in a situation where I was about to lose my freedom, and thank God I didn't. But to have the anxiety, I can't say anxiety, to know that this may be happening was something that I can't even explain to you, the level of stress. Because you get in trouble a lot of times. And a lot of people get in trouble. So it could be something as small as even a DUI. You kind of get the DUI and then you're out in 24, 48 hours. You got to go to classes, you may have been put on probation, or whatever the case may be, no big deal. But if you've been in a different situation where you may go to jail, may go to a prison, or these type of things, it's crazy the way you feel. If you've ever seen people, and I'm sure you have on television, or other people that even when they've gone to jail, like 1 year in jail, or even 3, 4, it looks like they've aged 10, 15, 20 years. It's got to be unbelievable. But even, I'm not even going to go into that level, but just the freedom too is what I'm talking about again. And the reason I went with, your health and freedom is because a lot of times people don't take care of themselves. And as they get older, they lose their freedom as far as being able to do whatever they want to do socially. And a lot of times you may get hurt. You can hurt your knee, for instance, or you may hurt your back. You may have to stay home for long periods of time. You may end up in a wheelchair, which that can happen to anybody. But I see this with people a lot of times, that they neglected their health, which in turn destroyed their freedom. Or I think a lot of people didn't have to do that. And if you're younger, I'm going to say this all the time on my podcast, please take care of your body. You literally only get one. And when you're younger, you think you're indestructible. But as you get older, you will start to realize you are not indestructible. I don't know if it's going to hit you at 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever the case may be. When the hammer starts to come down, it's coming down. I talked about this before, that death is hunting you. You have to realize that. When's it going to get you? I have no idea, but it gets all of us. Let me get some water here. But if you want to have freedom physically and whatever, on the streets or whatever, you have to take care of yourselves, and you have to understand every move you make. When you're making these moves, make sure it's a good move, because you can also do something in your life, and I've seen a lot of great people where bad things happen to them, and I've also seen a lot of bad people where bad things happen to them as well. But one mistake in your life, you can lose your freedom. And again, it could be drinking and driving. You can end up in an accident, paralyzed. You can sell drugs, hypothetically, get busted. You may do something shady at work, even white-collar crimes. You don't think you're ever going to get busted. You end up getting busted. All these type of things. Make sure the moves you make are worth, are worth it. If you're going to lose your freedom, if you get busted, I'm going to tell you most likely it's not worth it. And I don't think a lot of people really understand how valuable, again, freedom is. Not only that, a lot of people who get busted doing a lot of things, let's go back to that, is when you get busted or you got to go to the joint or something like that, if you're a felon, it's on your record. So not only are you losing time away from it could be your family, friends, colleagues, whatever you get put away. When you come out, you are never, usually for the most part, looked at the same way. You most likely also, it's going to be very hard to do certain things now because of your record. You're also going to most likely be on probation. But again, say it's not even that, doing something shady, say it's something personal, or you go out and do something, again, where you can hurt yourself. Now, I get there's a lot of dudes that do extreme sports and things, but be very aware of doing things physically where, again, you can lose your freedom and hurt yourself. I, not long ago, was in San Diego. My cousin, I was living there, and he wanted to go mountain biking, and we would do it, and I loved it. And then we saw a ramp like an asshole. I said, let me jump it, went down the hill, jumped, flipped over the handlebars. I broke a few ribs. Now, I almost caught my neck, and I almost did that with a motorcycle when I was younger. I flipped over the handlebars, could have snapped my neck, probably been paralyzed. That's something I'm talking about. Now, be very aware when you're going to do things where, again, where you could end up hurting yourself or hurting others, where, again, you're going to lose your freedom. So I just think, especially as we get older, we still think we're indestructible, and we're not. And we just really got to pay attention to those things, regardless, actually, if you're younger or older. But really pay attention to your life. I talk about this shit on my podcast all the time, is I want to make sure everybody looks at things differently. And hopefully when you listen to me, I'm not just preaching, or I don't want to come off as a preacher, but everything I'm telling you is the God's honest truth. And I wish a lot of people would have told me this years ago, or there were podcasts on these subjects, because I didn't have, basically all we had growing up was our parents, our grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins, and we kind of followed in their tracks to a certain degree, but it wasn't as open, I think. And I don't think people were honest about a lot of things they did or who they were, where now, at least, I think with maybe social media could be good or bad, but there's a lot of honesty, I think, that can come to the forefront. Or actually, I want to be more honest with people to say, hey, I've been through this. This is what I've done wrong, and this is what I'm trying to do to help others, because I really want to help others more than anything else. And doing these podcasts kind of expose a lot of myself. Actually, it exposes me entirely, good or bad. But I really do want people to think about their actions and be self-aware. I know I wasn't for many, many years. My behavior sucked. My ego was off the chart. I don't think I was a bad dad. I think that was the one thing I was okay at. And I really think I was a good friend for the most part, or always wanted the best for my friends. But it's sometimes, I'll be honest with you, I don't think I was a good... sometimes I would do a lot of things, and I don't think I realized by me doing what I was doing, I was putting other people in a position where it was kind of unsafe for them. And I would never do that now. But I was a bad influence. And I don't think a lot of us acknowledge that a lot of us are a bad influence on others. And I was. And I just recently actually started to think about this the last couple of years with my friends, because my friends actually talk about how wonderful our youth was. And when we were younger, we'd be going to bars and clubs and gentlemen's clubs and restaurants, and the lifestyle we led. But some of them friends, or even other friends that kind of led into, was some heartache. Some of my friends went down some, they had a lot of problems after that. I'm not saying that was because of me. That's ridiculous. But what I am saying is sometimes you got to be aware of your actions, because you don't sometimes realize how you affect others. And the last thing I want to do is hurt anybody. But I'm going to wrap it up there. Please take care of your health and really appreciate your freedom. I know if you live in the United States, our whole thing is about freedom. And I'm telling you, I've been in Italy and I've been in other places as well. I don't think, as far as what I see, I value our freedom so much that we are able to do a lot of things that other countries, or, that they don't have, and they don't have the opportunities. I know sometimes we talk about that and we're like, yeah, whatever. But it's just an amazing thing to be able to really, if you can, I'm not saying you can go out and become anything you want to become, because I think that's ridiculous. It's like me saying I want to become a middle linebacker for the Chicago Bears, and I was too small and now I'm too old. That's ridiculous. But if I do wanted to coach, say, or become a referee or umpire, I talk about that, be a part of something like football. If that's something I decided, I can possibly do that, which is an amazing thing in our life. If you're younger, you have a lot of time to figure some things out, but start doing them, and it's those small little things that are going to lead you to that. But you have the freedom, you have to realize, to do that. And if, again, you have your health, you have everything. Please take care of your health. Because if you ever go to hospitals, I remember when I was younger, I had to do a thing for schooling. I went to a Catholic high school, and they made us do, I forgot how many hours of helping others without getting paid. It was one of the best experiences of my life. First, I was just babysitting my friend who was a Mormon, and I was babysitting his child. I lived in this apartment complex in Chicago, so I was babysitting. And then I said, my mom said, let me take you to the hospital. You could start, hanging with those children. I went there and spent the day there. It changed my life forever, because I seen all these children that were very sick, and it broke my heart. And then what was very interesting is I ended up having a daughter who needed a liver transplant, and another daughter with type 1 diabetes later. And I think by me going to that hospital just that one day shocked me, because I didn't realize, again, how healthy I was as a young man. And also, these poor kids were stuck in a hospital. They didn't have the freedom to leave. So it was a combination. And then when my daughter was going through that as well, I always thought about that day I spent in the hospital, because I started to think about, she was now one of these children. And is she ever going to have her health and her freedom? She ended up having that. Both of my daughters, God bless. But it's just something to think about. Not only your life, you may have your health and freedom, but you may end up getting married. You may end up having sick parents. You may end up having sick children. Your friends may end up having sick children, colleagues, family members. So these are things we're going to have to deal with in our life. And just really, if you're healthy and you have your freedom, you have everything. All right? I'm going to wrap it up there. If you'd like, check out my YouTube channel. I've been doing a lot of things fitness related on there. I've been putting up a lot of different workouts I do, different gyms, restaurants, things in that nature. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn as well. So you can check me out there. And please leave a comment, good or bad. And please take care of your health and think. Become self-aware. A lot of things or actions you may be in control, especially if you drink. I think a majority of the people I know, they drink. A lot of them do drugs, a lot of things. Have an end game I talk about. I know that sounds stupid, but when you're sober, know what your intention is that night and how you want it to end. All right? I don't think a lot of people do that. They think, oh, I'm going to drink and see how I feel. Don't do that. Please pay attention to your behavior. Because not only do you not want to hurt yourself, you do not want to hurt others. And I don't think a lot of times we realize we can do that. You watch the news, you see all these different things. You never think something bad's going to happen to you. It may. Not only to you, but you may, again, hurt others. So, all right, I'll wrap it up there. Take care. And if you're traveling, safe travels.